welcome to the Uncapped Podcast, proudly presented by Roasthouse Pub, where elevated culinary creations meet a fresh, evolving craft beer selection, making it one of Frederick's unique dining destinations. I'm your host, Chris Sands, and today we're joined by Dave Carpenter, one of the co-founders and the brewmaster at Mobtown Brewing Company. Welcome to the studio.
Thanks for inviting me.
Are you still the newest Baltimore brewery?
Yes. Yeah, right now, but not for long.
Yeah, because someone was just telling me there's like a few that are going to be opening within the next few months to a year in Baltimore, right?
Yeah, I know of at least two, but I know there's more in planning.
Which is kind of good because Baltimore's could definitely handle a few more, I would think, right? Like
I think
there's
so.
not really a huge density of them throughout the city.
No, it's yeah, and I feel like Frederick's kind of become the sort of beer capital of Maryland.
People have said that before.
So, I feel like Baltimore, we need to work on stealing that from you guys.
It's not going to happen. I mean, you're more than welcome to try because we'll just up our game. But
yeah, well, that won't hurt anyone.
So typically we start these out with just getting a history about you yourself, and then we can go into about the brewery specifically. So what were you doing before you decided to open a brewery? How did you get into brewing? All that good stuff.
So actually on the way here, I listened to your last episode, and I was also an engineer. So I was a geotechnical engineer for 17 years with a local company based in Baltimore.
So geotechnical, is that like doing geothermal systems?
It's soils and retaining walls and foundations, things like that. So we were designing. We'd work with structural engineers. They'd give us the loads. We would design a foundation system to support the building, or, they wanted to build a wall, 20 feet high, and we'd tell them what kind of design pressures they need to build it to withstand.
I don't remember any of the details, but apparently the foundation for our press table, where the printing press is impressive.
Okay.
There's huge columns of because it's made to withstand, I can't remember what level of a earthquake, because the tolerances for the press table were really tight because the paper's vertically fed.
Yeah.
So like the columns go down, I can't remember how far into the earth.
I'm sure. We used to do a lot of work in Frederick. I briefly worked at Bechtel when they were still here, which was a fun commute. But yeah, I did that for 17 years, and I really liked my job when I started it. But as I got higher and higher in the company, and my hourly billing rate went up and up, the stuff that I enjoyed doing, I was too expensive to do, and so then it became kind of all office work and managing projects and delegating work to cheaper engineers. And
I can't remember. I think Google was the example given to me recently. But when I worked at Hughes Network Systems, we had the same thing where there were, for a lot like what you just said, people who are great at their jobs but don't want to go into management and like want to just keep doing what they're doing, have a track for you to excel staying an engineer instead of having to go into management to move up.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, our office, we had at the time, I think 17 offices up and down the East Coast, and a couple mergers going on, so there was stuff happening on the West Coast, and we were one of the smaller offices, so there really wasn't anywhere else to go but up. So at my office, so it was kind of, unless I wanted to move to a different office, my options were limited. But I did really enjoy it. I loved working with the people there, and I loved my job. It's just kind of when they wanted me to get into business development and joining professional societies and getting on committees, that was enough for me. So I went to my hobby as my job.
So is that
Yeah.
I'm assuming you homebrewed as a hobby?
Yes, I was a home brewer for almost as long as I worked in engineering. And
So how was your first batch that you made as a home brewer?
so I was expecting this question. My first batch was actually pretty good. It was my second batch that was terrible, because when my first batch came out really well, then I was like, all right, I can do this. I'm gonna play around with it, and that's when
Played around a little too much?
Yeah, that's when I messed up.
So you're in the small minority of a good first batch.
Yes.
Congratulations.
I mean, it wasn't great.
Well, most people categorize them as horrible.
Yes. So I,
good on that scale is great.
I was like, 22 at the time, and we would drink pretty much anything. So we drank it.
Yeah.
It didn't make us sick, and it tasted all right.
So it's better than Milwaukee's best.
It was, yes. Yeah. So, yeah, but so I started, it was funny because I started because my brother got me one of those Mr. Beer kits.
I wonder, there have been several people we've interviewed that started out on a Mr. Beer kit. I would love to know how many brewers there are that Mr. Beer has created.
How many would admit to it?
Yeah, that's that too.
Yeah. So, but I brewed on that for a very, very short period of time, because then my girlfriend, who's now my wife, got me my first kind of ingredient kit.
Okay.
From an actual homebrew store, and the Mr. Beer kit was way too small to be able to brew that much. So then I had to graduate full time to, homebrew store supplies, glass carboys and buckets.
And that's when the money starts getting spent.
Yep. Oh yeah. So,
I love the home brewers that always try to be delusional about how it's saving money.
Yeah, right. I can make 2 cases for $80. So if I spent that much on it, you'd have to like literally buy the most expensive beer.
Yeah.
To make it worth it. So, we were delusional about that in the beginning as well. But then I started taking donations to help pay for ingredients from my friends. So.
Well, it's, I guess, if were you doing like 5-gallon batches?
Yeah.
So, yeah. So if you have a group of friends that are helping you drink anything, it's only fair to pitch in.
I would say they were probably drinking most of it.
Yeah, I would. Back when I home brewed, it was definitely, I think I gave away more of the beer I brewed than what I drank.
Yeah, I definitely did. So yeah, that was.
So it was the misery of sitting in a cube.
Well, it was that, and then it was also kind of like so in 2015, my father passed away, and I kind of, my brother had passed away in 2007 and my mom in 2009. And so then in 2015, it was my dad. So I was kind of the last one in my family. And I kind of looked at my dad's life and said, he worked his entire life doing something he probably hated so that he could save for retirement and
be responsible
and spend time with his family and my mom, to travel, because that's what they'd planned on doing when they retired. But they never really got to do that. And so, I kind of took a hard look at my life, and I'm like, I'm sitting here this daily grind, kind of hating every second of my life. And I think I could be doing something I enjoy more and still being able to support my family. So that was kind of the final decision.
When you put it that way, I'm really glad you quit.
Yeah. So it wasn't just because I hated my job, because I probably would have stuck with it a little bit longer
without a epiphany type moment.
It was kind of a I don't know, midlife crisis, but not really. It was definitely brought on by big changes in my life that kind of made me think about where I was going. So.
In the long run, it'll probably be a much better decision than going and like buying a sports car or something.
I would like to hope so.
That's a good midlife crisis.
I think so.
So how many of you got together to found Mobtown?
So there's 3 of us. So myself, my partners Noah Chadwick and Darren Stempfley. So we're the 3 owners.
So how did the 3 of you meet?
Noah used to work with me at my old job.
Okay. Did he hate it as much as you did?
No, he was only there for a short period of time, and then he moved on and worked for an environmental firm after that. So he's an environmental scientist. And then Darren I actually met through homebrew competitions. So the first, I think the first 3 times I competed against him, we brewed the exact same style of beer.
Oh wow.
And and so finally we were like, maybe we need to start talking outside of these things so this doesn't happen again. And then that just ended up us brewing together, you know, and then becoming friends. So that's kind of how that all started.
So did were all three of you into home brewing at
Uh,
that time, or would,
and just Darren and I, Noah was more into drinking homebrew.
okay?
So, but was also, you know, had worked in the kind of restaurant bar industry and was interested in doing something in there with starting a brewery. So it kind of worked out with the 3 of us.
So we're going to take a real quick break to thank our longtime sponsor, Roasthouse Pub. And then when we get back, I think we'll dive a little bit more into how the 3 of you came to the point of deciding you're actually going to pull the plug and, or maybe put the plug in, I don't know which cliche you want to use, and start Mobtown.
Sounds
If
good.
you haven't heard about our beer dinners, well, now you have. Typically, the last Tuesday of each month, we partner with a local brewery and craft an exclusive 5-course dinner. Each course is thoughtfully paired with some of the finest craft beer available. You'll meet the brewery, enjoy memorable pairings and service, and have a damn good time. Like us on Facebook to stay in the know when tickets become available, because they will sell out quick.
All right, so you hate your job. You met your arch nemesis in brewing, turned collaborator.
Yes, I converted him.
So how did the 3 of you get to the point where you're like, you know what, we should just go ahead and do this professionally?
Well, you know, during that whole time, I kind of had been seriously thinking about it, and I think even before my father passed away, I had applied to the UC Davis Master Brewers Program
Okay.
and had done a Siebel Institute like online course just to kind of like get up to speed with more of the science and stuff. Because as much as I love brewing, I could never force myself to sit down and read books about yeast management and all that stuff. So I wanted to kind of force myself to get more into the science and engineering of brewing and, you know, figure out really how to brew. And so I got put on the waiting list for that. And then in 2016, they basically sent me an email and said, you're in next January. So, or that was 2017. So at that point, then I was like, okay, I guess I'm really doing this, and I should probably start working on something else. So then, the 3 of us had been talking about, you know, how I didn't tell my boss or any of my coworkers right away.
Yeah.
So because it was still a ways off. So, but Noah and Darren and I started kind of planning and writing, you know, how do we write a business plan? How are we going to get funding? And we just leapt into it at that point. And so, by the time I left, so I left in the very end of 2017. I have a wife and 2 kids. We all drove out to California together and rented a statistics professor's house because she was on sabbatical, and we spent 6 months in California where I did the Master Brewers Program. And then during that time, we had kind of finished our business plan, had approached a bunch of people, had applied, gone and met with banks, you know, and we're working on kind of closing an SBA loan, and had been touring and looking at different facilities. And while I was in California, we found our space that we're in now. So I actually never saw it before we signed the lease.
All right. Well, that's quite a bit of faith in
I did-
your guys.
They sent me pictures and little videos of like
Yeah.
walking around the space, and so I mean, it was nice because it was like a big empty shell, and it was less than a mile from my house, which
Oh,
is
a
great.
beautiful.
One of my main criteria. So, so yeah, I mean, that's kind of how it all came together. It was sort of like I sort of forced everyone's hands. I was like, if we're gonna do it, let's do it now because I'm gonna be gone for 6 months, and so that's kind of how we made that leap.
A friend of mine actually had to buy a house recently that way. He was moving, same thing, from California, but to the Pittsburgh area. It was during when the market was really hot, and so property would go on the market and be gone a couple days later. So he there was no way he could logistically fly out to look at properties,
Yeah.
because they'd be gone by the time he made the arrangement. So he had a real estate agent that would FaceTime him and walk through the house
Wow.
and show him over FaceTime. And
Hopefully, he had a very, very trustworthy real estate agent.
he's very happy with it worked out, thankfully. But
that's good.
That's also like, I don't know that I would be able to make that big of a purchase based on a FaceTime call.
Yeah, I mean, we knew we had to get it done. And we
Yeah.
were trying to find a space, and we didn't want to, like, every day that we didn't have a spot was kind of like
Yeah.
pushing
Well, at
our
least you
schedule
had
back.
2/3 of your team
Yeah.
physically seeing it to
Right,
talk it up to you and let you know that it was a
Yeah.
good idea.
Yeah. So, and we had been to a couple different spaces before that where we liked it, but there was some structural issues, and the landlords didn't want to contribute, and so I think for us, for this space, it was great because there was a team that owned the property that were very interested in having us there. It was already an industrial space, and so it already had the kind of the power requirements and water requirements and gas and everything that we needed. So, and they were going to put $1 million just into the building.
Oh, wow. So that helps make it attractive.
Yeah, so that so that was a huge cut in our expenses of having to do work to make someone else's building suitable for us.
Yeah.
So so that was kind of once we found out how much they were going to contribute, we that was it. So
Yeah, unfortunately, I stumbled upon it once when I was on my way, and it's a big building. And I wanted to stop, although I think you hadn't opened yet.
We didn't open until the last week of April.
Yeah, so I think it may, and I was already late for an appointment. I was like, I can't stop now, and I had to go. And I haven't had an opportunity to just come out to Baltimore to go to places again yet.
Maybe wait till later this fall. You'll have a couple more places to visit. All in one trip.
So you had said during describing your job about like business development, business proposals, and stuff like that. Did that help you though with the writing the business plan and like that experience with your job with the business plan, getting a small business loan and all that, or did the rest of the team do that part of the work?
No, I mean I'm fairly proficient with Excel, so financial spreadsheets and things like that were fairly simple to kind of put together. My team helped. We all kind of pitched in and did them all sort of together, and then we would kind of split things off and assign tasks. And definitely the engineering, my engineering background helped a lot in just with the layout of the space and kind of making sure, we had our architect coming in and designing stuff, making sure that the trench drains and things like that were going to flow correctly, downhill and things like that. So definitely my previous job helped us with planning and construction and all of that.
So you're the only one out of the three that's been formally trained in brewing.
Yes.
Do Noah or Dennis?
Darren.
I knew it was a D at least. So many people say they're horrible with names. I am just absolutely atrocious with names. Do either of them do any of the brewing, or is it mainly you focusing on? I guess there's other people brewing because you just said you
Yes.
kicked off a double batch day
Yes.
before you came here.
So Darren brews, but Noah and Darren both still have full-time jobs. So
Can you pull that down just a tad closer to you? Mouth?
Yeah.
There you go.
There we go. That's better. So Darren and Noah both still have their previous full-time jobs. They haven't not made the full leap yet. And we have an assistant brewer, Sean. So Darren's generally free on Tuesdays. So if we're gonna do a beer that's his recipe, we'll generally do it on Tuesday. So he can come in and help.
Okay.
You know, or kind of lead it, and then Sean and I are sort of his assistants.
Is Noah involved with the brewing side of anything at all? Is he still just strictly on the professional drinking side?
He's kind of our financial guy, so he sort of keeps track of our finances and makes sure our taxes get paid, and kind of does all the spreadsheets, sends us the bank statements and say, I need receipts for all of these purchases. This is from your card, so get it to me within a day.
So he keeps you from going out of business.
Yeah, pretty much. So he's very important to the cause. Tells us we need to brew more beer, we need to sell more beer, we need to distribute more beer. So
he's kind of like operations and business side of the.
Yeah, you know, and then, you know, I kind of in doing most of the brewing, and then some limited kind of distribution tasks. So obviously we're self-distributing. We're so small. So right now we're kind of only in Baltimore and the immediate area.
Okay.
But we're expecting it to expand on that pretty soon.
Well, another good place to send your cans would be who we'll stop to thank real quick now. District East in Frederick does a great job of highlighting craft breweries. In fact, they only have one tiny little case of macro beers. Almost the entire store is in a heavily leaning towards Maryland craft beer. So we're going to take a real quick break to talk about them, and then when we get back, I want to learn about where the name came from and the process of opening. District East is located on the 800 block of East Street, next to Rockwell Brewing Company and Family Meal. Choosing from their large selection of craft beer, you can create a custom six-pack suited to your taste. With tastings every Friday night and Saturday afternoon, Crowler and Growler fills available and kegs to go, it's a beer drinker's paradise. Their knowledgeable and helpful staff will help guide you to the perfect beer or wine for any occasion. They have been selected by many breweries to host limited and exclusive beer releases, which made them the obvious choice to feature my collaboration beers. Stop in and see them for yourself. So as I was saying, what we're drinking right now, the Octopus Prime, is an absolutely delicious beer. Can you hold that can up and show people? Because I love the look of the can. And I guess now would be a good time to talk the cool, or do I need to go into the name of the brewery first before we talk about your mural and where that came from?
We can. Well, so the name of the brewery it's Mobtown Brewing Company, and just really briefly, it's a nickname for Baltimore. So Baltimore has always, since the Revolutionary War, has been kind of quick to anger and quick to riot. And so kind of that became sort of Baltimore's nickname, you know, from Revolutionary War all the way up to Civil War, and then even up to just a couple years ago. So that's kind of where that came from. A lot of people are like, oh, how come you don't have any murals of Al Capone? It's like, it's not that kind of mob. It's the torches and pitchforks kind of mob.
Yeah. Whenever I saw the first any information about you guys, I was surprised that actually that Mobtown hadn't been taken yet. Because there's just so many cities that could do a spin on that it was like, it's a great name, and how is that not taken?
Yeah, well, and even in Baltimore, where it's, you know, specifically in Baltimore, there's not a lot of other businesses that are Mobtown. There's Mobtown Ballroom and Mobtown Florals, and I think there was like a boxing gym That's it. So it wasn't even, even really prevalent in Baltimore.
Yeah.
So, but it was what I was using as my sort of home brewery name
Oh, okay.
for like a really long time, and I just kind of stuck with it.
Did you grow up in Baltimore? Or are you
Yeah.
native to?
Well, around like north of Baltimore, up in Baltimore County.
Okay.
So
Close enough that you would say, I grew up in Baltimore.
yeah, essentially, yeah. So, so that's the name of the brewery, and then for the can art. So this was our Octopus Prime, and that is the second of our Octopus kind of big IPA series of can releases. The first one was Space Octopus, and they're based on our mural in our tap room, which is a giant space octopus, which was painted by Marshall Adams, who's a local artist, kind of grew up in the Baltimore area. Does a lot of big murals for like signs on buildings and things like that, and did the sign on the outside of our building. But then it had, come in, and we were showing him the space where he wanted to put a mural, and it just kind of worked out. So we, had him do half of it, and then we had another artist, Chelsea Henry, did kind of the other half.
Oh, cool. So why a space octopus?
Space Octopus is kind of an inside joke between me and 5 or 6 of my closest friends from high school. So we all we grew up together, and we all kind of got married around the same time. And so I remember the first of us to get married was my friend Bill, and his brother was his best man, and he gave this incredibly awkward, kind of cringy, embarrassing toast. And we're all kind of feeling uncomfortable listening to him. And
That bad?
it was really bad. But at one point I remember him, he just kind of blurts out, "It's like a space octopus." I guess he was trying to say it's like something you wouldn't expect. I don't know, but I remember looking over at Bill at the, down the table from me, and just being like, "What the hell is he talking about?" And so we all made fun of him afterwards for it, and but then I was the next person to get married, and my friend Matt was also in that wedding, and then of course he was my best man. So during his toast for my wedding, Space Octopus.
That's amazing.
And then I was best man in Matt's wedding, so then I had to bring it up. So there was like, I would say 5 or 6 weddings, like within a 1 or 2 year period, where the best man during his toast mentioned a space octopus in some way.
Did you all work it in differently, or did you all just end it with "it's like a space octopus"?
No, we all worked it in differently. So
that makes it even better.
Yeah, so because I was an engineer, and my friend Matt was an engineer. For my toast for him, I did like a PowerPoint presentation, and like had like space octopus graphics, like in the presentation. So
I have never been to a wedding that the best man toast involved a PowerPoint. That's amazing.
It was ridiculous. So then Bill, who was kind of the origin of this whole story, he was actually the project manager or the contractor that built the brewery out.
Oh,
so then
a weird, strange world.
Well, I mean, he found out that I was opening a brewery,
Yeah.
and he was basically, "I'm building your brewery. You don't have a choice." So, and then I was talking to him about the mural and what we were gonna do, and he was like, "Dave, it's obvious,
Yeah.
space octopus," and he didn't really have to convince me beyond that. So,
I think as being part of a friend group from high school that also relentlessly mess with each other, I think that's probably my favorite story that I've been told on this podcast so far.
well, thank you. Thank you. I've gotten better at telling it because people ask me all the time now, and then
Yeah. It kind of is like, well, all right, the name of the brewery is Mobtown. That is definitely not nautical themed. Why the hell do you have an octopus and it's in space
Yeah.
on this?
Yeah. So, I mean, the whole reason we got the space itself. So the building we're in is this. It's an old Westinghouse factory that was built during or shortly after World War II, and they used to make these big electric engines. there. And so there's these massive gantry cranes on rails, kind of that go the whole length of the building. And I think we have 5 of them in our space.
Are they still there?
They're still there.
Do they work, or are they just still kind of?
If we hook them up to power,
Oh, wow.
we decommissioned them. So we moved them into position where we wanted them,
Uh-huh.
and then we cut the power to them.
Okay.
Because if we kept them operational, we'd have to have OSHA inspections and
Yeah.
a lot of license fees and things like that. So
I think that's a set. We have one too that needed to be there for when the press was put into place, and I think it's the same thing. It's
Yep.
it's disconnected
Yeah.
because of the.
yeah, you don't have to have the annual inspections to make sure they're operational, and then everyone has to wear safety gear around them and things like that. And so the main like 7.5 ton crane is right above our bar in the tasting room.
Oh,
so
cool.
The big hook is like literally hanging like 3.5 feet above the.
Is there anything on it?
No.
You should just put some like tiny little thing hanging.
We
or an
will
octopus.
occasionally hang like a flag or
Okay.
a baseball cap or something from it just for decoration, but it's just this massive hook kind of. And you come into the tasting room, no one really notices it until you've kind of been in there a little while, and then you're like, oh man,
There's a giant hook there.
It's massive, yeah. So, so like it's this big industrial space, and you know, we're doing all this work in it. It's all concrete and steel, and so we just have these big blank walls, and you know, we thought we need to get a lot of color in here to kind of liven up the tasting room and make it a little less mechanical.
So is it kind of like Monument City, where it's just one big room in like if
Yeah.
you walk in, so you walk into like the tasting room area, but you can still see the production area perfectly. And
Yeah, we're obviously not, we're not as big as Monument City. They have such a huge space, but yeah,
place is gigantic.
yeah, you walk into the tasting room. You actually walk in through our loading dock. Our main entrance is our loading dock.
Okay.
And so you walk in through the loading dock, and we use the loading dock. We have a ping pong table down there, so when we're not actually getting deliveries, we'll set up a ping pong table, and when tap room is open, and then you kind of walk in from there, and then the bar is out in front of you, and off to your right is the brewery. So, and it's there. You know, you can touch I would like to discourage people from touching the fermenters, but you can touch them.
So yeah, everyone, please do not touch the ferment.
Yeah, we have to shine them up with stainless steel wipes.
The stainless steel is a pain to clean. They're not like modern refrigerators that are coated with the fingerprint proofing.
Nope.
So you opened in April.
Yes.
Right? How's it been so far?
I mean, it was good. We are still kind of finding our place in the scene, I think. And none of us have really run businesses like this before, so we're sort of
Just
figuring it out as we go. So, we know we need to make our monthly minimums and things like that. So we're kind of trying to, and now we're coming to sort of festival season where everyone's got tons of events. And so we're sort of, I don't know, it's going to be our first fall. I think we're about to get really busy. So
Yeah, it's kind of weird that like fall is the busiest time for breweries. Like that's, I guess I just always would have thought like summer would be, but like while there's a lot going on, it's like soon as September hits is when it's really bad.
yeah, I guess the way I figured is that in the summer, everyone's got stuff to do outside.
Yeah,
And then you get the fall, and the days start getting shorter, and everyone kind of gets into their seasonal depressions, and and then they need somewhere to go drink. So,
all right, so we're gonna take one final sponsor break, and I want to talk about your equipment, brewery size, brew house size, and all that fun stuff.
okay.
I'm excited to announce our newest sponsor, Vanish Farmwoods Brewery. Vanish is a brewery and entertainment complex located on a 62-acre hops and apple farm in Luckett's, Virginia, just 20 minutes from Frederick, Maryland, and Leesburg, Virginia. With over 20 beers on tap, a selection of wines and ciders, along with multiple food options, there is something for everyone. Vanish has live music on Saturdays and Sundays and a wide variety of special events. Go to vanishbeer.com for information on everything they have to offer. So first, I want to congratulate you on making one of maybe 5 Hefeweizens in this world that I have ever enjoyed.
Thank you very much. I also hate Hefeweizens, so I needed to find a way to make something that I would drink.
And it's not that I like it because there have been beers I've liked that were labeled Hefeweizens, and you taste them and you're like, well, this just isn't even a Hefeweizen. That's why I like it. Like, this is enough Hefeweizen to definitively say, yes, it's a Hefeweizen, but you dialed back the aspects of a Hefeweizen I hate enough that it's enjoyable.
Yeah, that was my design.
So bravo.
Thank you. Yeah, this is we take a very non-traditional approach to this Hefeweizen, so it's kind of the grain bill and everything. The yeast are all traditional, but then once we fermented it, we just started adding lots of non-German hops. So so this has Galaxy hops added during fermentation.
So I like that. I like that you took a traditional base, but you put your own spin on it. Is that your general idea where, like, who cares about, like, traditions have their place and I will honor them sometimes, but ultimately who cares? I'm going to do what I want to do.
Yeah, so we as a home brewer, I always found it very frustrating trying to fit into specific BJCP kind of guidelines and definitions of what a beer has to be.
So I took second place once for I made my interpretation of Nugget Nectar, because for the longest time that was my absolute favorite beer. But I mean, the closest thing to enter it in is an amber ale.
Yeah.
And I won second place because all of them just dinged it too strong to, like,
Yeah.
all the things, because it's an imperial amber. And, like, there were even a couple notes that pointed out how similar it was to Nugget Nectar. And my thought was, like, I bet this is better than every other beer that was put in as an amber, but because of the stupid style guides,
right?
Which, I mean, they have a place and a reason for it, but like you just said, I found it frustrating too.
Yeah, I mean, I've learned now, and we haven't done any as a professional brewery. We haven't done any competitions. We sort of missed this year's Maryland craft beer competition due to it was my fault. It was my fault. We were going to enter, and they had the cutoff date was like 12:00 a.m. on this day. And I was thinking I had one more day, but it was actually like that night.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I will do traditional beers, and we're doing our Mobtoberfest is coming up on October 5th, and we have a traditional Märzen and a Schwarzbier that I kind of stuck with it because those are styles that I like.
Yeah.
But with the Hefeweizen, I
needed to fix it.
I needed to go out there and do something different. So, but I mean, we like to play around with things, and so home brewing, I was always trying to kind of hit these style guidelines, and then I started doing this beer competition that Nepenthe Brewing Company, before they were a brewing company, when they were just the homebrew shop. Yeah. So they sponsored one every year that was called Hopped. And it was like a mystery ingredient homebrew competition. So you went to sign up.
I get it.
You
not
signed
chopped,
up.
But
Yeah,
hopped.
not chopped, but hopped. So you would sign up, and they literally give you a box. Here's what you have to use.
That's really cool.
Everyone got it. And then you had 2 months or 3 months to brew a beer that contained all of those ingredients.
That is really cool.
And
do they still do that?
They still do.
Oh,
yeah.
That's awesome.
And I thought I did fairly well at it. So I think the first year I did it, I got second place. And then the second year I did it, I won it. Third year I did it, I did not place. It was
should have quit while you were
on
top.
I'm a completist, and that third year they had ramen noodles as one of their mystery ingredients, and I had to have all of it in there. And so there was a bunch of people that brewed beers that didn't include the little flavor packet. But you put it in. Had to. And so my beer had this it was a completely drinkable beer. I did a Vienna lager with lime flavor ice and some other stuff, and this ramen noodle packet. So it just had a sort of chicken soup aftertaste. It was very subtle, but it was definitely noticeable.
I wonder. I wonder if there would be some way to make like a goza, or a goza with enough flavor that would hide the chicken enough because of how salty
Yeah, maybe
that might work.
I was thinking like lime and salt and kind
Yeah.
of Mexican style beer. Like maybe I can hide it that way, but it was a Vienna lager. I think was maybe too malty of a beer to really make that work. So it sort of failed.
Did
But
they specifically say you had to use the packets and
no,
people just
no,
ignored it?
no.
or-
They actually kind of after I had already brewed mine, they said
Oh, by the way, you don't
you don't
have
have to use it. So, but I probably even if I'd known, I probably would have.
Yeah,
Because I
just for the.
have to.
Were you able? Oh, I guess because they give you the box with the ingredients, you have to use what has been given to you, because you might have been able to like buy a different pack of ramen that has a less strong,
Right. Maybe like
maybe like the shrimp one or
I
something.
don't know. I had to use what they gave me. So but then the previous competitions I actually used more of some of the mystery ingredients. So the first competition, one of the mystery ingredients was Mountain Dew, and I made a beer that was like literally 40% Mountain Dew.
My good.
And it was
that had to be a very expensive beer to make.
It was delicious, and I made a Berliner Weisse with
Okay.
it. It was surprising how well the Mountain Dew fermented. But yeah, no, I got second place that year. That was not too shabby, I guess. So
I guess really it's just sugar water with some flavoring in it.
it's mostly
so
citric acid, right?
Yeah.
It's orange and like citrus flavoring. So I figure if I do a nice sour beer, add some like New Zealand hops, some Motueka, a little bit of Citra. It
it would
I was hoping
work
it.
out
I
well.
was hoping it would be a little more green when I poured it out, but it's a nice straw color. It was fine.
Yeah, you should just dump some more food coloring in there or something.
Right, just give it that little green
Yeah.
tinge.
Yeah, because that would have added an extra layer of
Yes. Yeah.
awesomeness to it. So that was in the box, or you just
That was
chose
that was in the box, but they only had like a little it was like a pint,
yeah.
and I
can do better than
I
that.
went out and got a lot more Mountain Dew.
So how large of a brew house do you have?
We have a 10-barrel. It's a 10-barrel brew house, and we have 4 20-barrel fermenters and 1 10-barrel fermenter.
So you started out pretty big.
Yeah.
For
We anticipated needing to brew more quickly because every other brewer I've ever talked to has been like oversized, because if you start too small, you're going to be buying equipment within the first year.
yeah, and
So-
it's a lot more expensive to do that than
Yeah.
it's not really that like. Because were you considering like 3-barrel at first, or did you
And I
just
mean-
always have in your mind to do?
We always kind of had 10-barrel,
Okay.
but we kind of upsized the fermenters because then we were like, well, then we can just start double batching
Yeah.
and essentially double our capacity without having to buy any more equipment.
So you said you're self-distributing. Are you sending much outside of the brewery now, or is it still mainly just keeping up with the tap room?
It's mainly keeping up with the tap room. However, our walk-in cooler is completely full.
Okay.
And so in order to brew more beer, we need to move some out. So now we are concentrating more on trying to get beer out of our space and into other bars and restaurants.
And it's a great way to market the brewery too, because people go to a bar, try it, and then know you exist.
I mean, that was it was our
Yeah.
goal. Was we would love to get it out there enough that people would then want to come to us.
Yeah.
Right. But we're finding that the fun of being a brewer to me is creating new recipes and doing new things and putting out new beers and seeing how people react to them. And in order to in order to kind of keep that going and be able to brew as much as I want to brew, we almost have to distribute more.
Especially if you're,
Yeah.
are you doing almost 20 barrels of everything?
No,
Or-
I mean
or-
right now we're pushing our 10-barrel system, essentially doing 12 barrels of
Okay.
everything, and then when we do these canning runs, we'll do 20 barrels.
Okay.
And then for the higher gravity beers, we'll do double batches just because you can't do a 12-barrel batch of a high gravity beer because you'll totally fill your mash tun. So we do like an 8-barrel batch and then another 8-barrel batch the next day.
Okay.
So we kind of end up with a little bit more than we normally would.
Are you sending cans out in distribution or selling those all through the tap room?
Mostly through the tap room, but we have a couple liquor stores, 3 or 4 liquor stores in Baltimore that are carrying our cans now. They'll buy 5 or 6 cases of each type and sell them. And we're probably in about, I would say, maybe 10 bars.
Okay.
We're in the midst of beginning to distribute through a new company called Craft Coalition, that is essentially sales reps and they work with Free State beer delivery.
Oh, okay.
And so we're probably within the next 3 or 4 weeks we'll be distributing in Montgomery and Howard counties through them.
So do they count as a distributor, or are they
No.
just like independent contractors as salespeople?
So they're salespeople. So they have an app.
Okay.
You essentially say, we have this much beer that you guys can sell. So this many half-barrel kegs, this many sixtels, this many cans. And they go into their app, and they have designated salespeople that go out and sell it. And then Free State comes and picks it up and takes it. So
That's really cool. So Dan was already disrupting things with Free State on its own.
Yeah,
but you add that second layer
Yeah,
of
this is
a contract sales force. That's a
yeah. So it's Jason from he was working at Manor Hill for a long time, and he kind of came up with this app and this idea, and he's kind of taking it and partnered with Dan, and they're going. So they have a bunch of people that they're kind of working for already, and we're kind of their newest.
So is it just a local thing at this point, right?
Yeah, it's just local. So
That seems like
he's
something
right
that
now
could
he's
scale up, though.
only doing Montgomery County and a little bit
Okay.
of Howard. I think they're planning on going to DC.
Why does everyone ignore Frederick?
Well, Frederick is he told me Frederick possibly like early next year.
Okay.
So, and that would be definitely somewhere where we want to kind of
Yeah.
distribute to, because
Well, I mean, see,
it's
if you're-
hard for us to get out here. 'Cause
Yeah.
we don't have a box truck. We don't have
Yeah.
refrigeration. Everything we deliver in Baltimore goes in the back of my Jeep, or in our taproom manager Trevor. It goes in his Honda Civic, which can only carry so many kegs. So
Well, I mean, if you're going to be using Dan anyway, you could just send some stuff independently
We could.
straight to Frederick.
we could do that. So we're just kind of figuring it out as we go right now. But yeah, I think once we're meeting with Dan, I think Friday, and we're gonna kind of figure out the details and all that stuff. So
Yeah, Dan's such a great guy.
I've met him once, before at the Brewers Association
Okay.
of Maryland.
Yeah, he's a couple events we did where I needed cold storage. He let me use their truck for the breweries
That's
to
great.
be able to keep their kegs in. And
Yeah, so look for Mobtown beer coming soon to Montgomery and Howard counties, hopefully.
that's great. I need to have both of them on now. I've been wanting to have Dan on for a while, but now adding in
Yeah.
that whole layer of a contract sales force.
Yeah, no,
That
because
is-
he kind of approached us, and we were like, because we were, we've been talking about we need to hire a sales rep. We need to start distributing more, and Noah's looking at the budget, and he's like, we can't afford to hire a sales rep. Like, so.
Well, then you do it, Noah.
Right? Yeah. So this is it's this. He came at the very it was sort
Perfect
of the perfect
timing. Yeah.
timing. So Yeah, so hopefully it's going to work out.
That's really awesome. So I something I'm wondering, because I was actually just talking to a brewery that opened recently, and they were saying like they really wanted, before they made any kind of decisions, they wanted to wait a few months because they were worried that once they weren't the shiny new thing anymore, that they wouldn't see the same level of sales or people in their tap room. Did you see any kind of drop off after opening when you weren't the shiny new thing anymore, or
Yes.
did it? Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we have, I mean, we're kind of a local sort of neighborhood brewery. We're fairly small. We have a big tap room, and you know, the first few weeks we were open, the first month we were open, we were kind of packed. We had you know, great first couple months, but then as summer kind of rolled through, it's just been dropping off. And we were expecting, you know, with summer, everyone's on vacation, people aren't going to breweries, they're out doing stuff outside.
Has it slowly started to pick back up at all, though?
Well, that's what we were hoping, but
Okay.
it's been kind of spotty, like
Okay.
off and on, and so that's another reason that we were kind of like pushing distribution.
Because I've also, not even just breweries, but restaurants, saying that this summer was really bad for traffic into restaurants and tap rooms. And I think that coincided with, I remember seeing on the news something about like this year was record tourist revenue across the country. So I think because we're such an area that people leave instead of coming to,
It could be it, yeah.
like people taking vacations for the first time in a long time hurt hospitality type businesses in the Baltimore, Frederick, DC areas.
I mean, I've talked
Maybe
to
not
other,
DC as
I mean,
much.
I've talked to, I know bar owners and other brewers in Baltimore, and kind of everyone has said it always dies off in the summer.
Yeah.
But you'll have a strong fall. But we're noticing it's not really, hasn't picked up as much as we would like it to.
Well, I think we're still with school starting not until after Labor Day, and Maryland doesn't like to allow fall to actually happen.
It's still really nice
yeah.
outside, and the days aren't quite short enough yet. So when people start getting home at 4:30 in the afternoon, it's already dark. That's when I think people are really going to want to hit the tap room, because everyone's going to be so depressed for the winter and the sun. You know,
they'll need that Hefeweizen that's actually good.
They'll need it. Yeah. So, and I think we're also still relatively unknown. We've been doing some events, and you know, you like a third of the people at every event we go to are like, we've never even heard of you guys.
So
you know,
in the last couple of days, I've had several people ask me who I had coming up to come on, and I'd say at least 50% of them hadn't heard of Mobtown yet.
Yeah.
So that's good, because you guys didn't really publicize a lot before you opened. Didn't seem like it was, because typically you'll start hearing about a brewery sometimes up to 2 years beforehand, like all the social media. You guys kind of started and then you were open.
Yeah, I mean,
pretty quickly.
we really started paying attention to our social media game sort of when we were under construction, and so it was really only a few months.
Yeah,
and then and we really don't have any sort of advertising plan per se as it is right now. So that's another thing we're kind of trying to figure out as we go along. But we're in. We got a bunch of events coming up. So at the tap room on October 5th, we have Mobtoberfest. It's our first.
That already happened. Sorry, this probably won't come out until late October, early November.
So it was the turnout was amazing. Thank you everyone for coming. We've got the Baltimore Craft Beer Festival. Will be in.
This may be out before.
So hopefully, yes, well, last week you were advertising for it, so. So
well, I have a lot of. Unfortunately, I've kind of anyone who was willing, like had time. I was like, yes, let's record, and I have kind of a backlog.
Okay.
So
How about
you may or may not have been really busy.
I'm gonna come up with an event right now. We're gonna do Friendsgiving at Mobtown Brewing Company, and then Christmas something or other, New Year's Eve. It'll be great. No, but we'll have, so far I've only brewed the same one beer more than once, and so we're, right now our plan is to kind of keep going like this and just keep bringing new stuff out. And I'd love to have a new beer on tap every week if possible. So we're just going to keep doing it.
So I would imagine then the Baltimore Craft Beer Festival, that's the first large one that you will have been to?
Well, we were at the Maryland Craft Beer Festival.
Okay.
And we actually at the Baltimore Craft Beer Festival last year with our here's what we're going to have, our homebrew beers. We kind of fit in under their special event permit so they could we could serve it without a liquor license. But this year is this will be our first Baltimore Craft Beer Festival as an open operating brewery.
Where were you at for the Maryland one?
We were we were along the creek next to Oliver and who else? I don't remember. We were kind of all the way down at the gonna say the east end.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was it one of the areas that was more packed?
Yeah, because it kind of all
one of the pinch points.
So it all kind of narrows down. You kind of go under the bridge, and then it all kind of narrows down, and there's the tree pits, along the one side, and the creek along the other side. So we're kind of up on one of those tree pit type things.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I know. Maybe I did stop and have something from you guys then.
You may have.
I think it's a done deal that next year they're going to be able to have the next block of the creek, so they'll be able to spread out more. And there were, I think, 7 or 8 breweries that had to be turned down.
Oh, really?
Because they had to cut off people getting in.
It was it was packed. I mean, it was ridiculous. I'd never been to it before, even as a beer fan, and so just kind of going and seeing that was kind of
that's my favorite festival of any. I mean, one, because I can Uber to it really easily, but and seeing the progression of it, because the first, when it became the Maryland Craft Beer Festival, because before that it was Spring Fest, and it was at the Harry Grove Stadium where the Frederick Keys play at, and I really liked it there. But that was back when there was I don't know, maybe 10 breweries across the state.
Yeah.
Then they had it at the fairgrounds. It was awful there. Then they moved it to the creek, but it was only one tiny little section of it, and it didn't even. It was kind of tight, but it didn't really need to be much larger. But then we've split, so it was the band area. It was only in that area.
Oh wow, man!
And yeah, so what it's become now is exponential compared to where it started out.
Yeah, it was packed. It was nuts. So that was interesting. But we'll definitely be there. We're gonna try to hit all the big festivals, and we're starting to kind of hammer together how to find out, because we sort of find out about everything too late now. So, so we're kind of figuring out all that stuff now. But yeah, we'll be out and about a lot more in the next few months. So,
and I love the Baltimore one too. That's a beautiful place for a festival, and it's you never feel crowded because it's such a large spread out.
And they're changing it this year. I guess they're getting rid of the homebrew competition so that they can fit more porta potties in.
Okay, yeah, there was a big complaint about that last year.
And they're also now they're group so before you had you would call in, and they would randomize the names of the breweries, and you could pick out which spot you wanted depending on which order you were in. So, but apparently this year now for the Baltimore Craft Beer Festival, they're putting everything kind of in groups, separated by region.
I like that.
So that
you can almost do a tour of Maryland.
Yeah, so you can. So if you want to, if you're from Frederick and you haven't had a chance to try all these Baltimore breweries, they're kind of all going to be in one area. Or if you want to try some Eastern Shore breweries, they're going to be in another area. And so you hit the Burley Oaks
Yeah.
and the
Well, they won't be
RARs.
there.
Yeah, well,
They don't. They
They
don't. They don't feel the need to belong to band.
yeah, they won't be there. But like the
RAR is usually there,
and then you'll hit the cult classic or some of the ones that people may have never had a chance to go to or have been to, and I think it's going to help breweries, but it's also going to help people kind of find new beer.
I hope they do that at the Frederick one too, because it's even more like pockets where you can really make it seem like you're moving from area to area. The way that it expands and then recontracts.
Well, yeah, it was funny because I was kind of walking around the Maryland Craft Beer Festival here in Frederick, and it was funny because there's only a couple of breweries in Frederick that I had been to at the time, and so I was like, I got to try all these other breweries, and they kind of all knew where to go. So they were all kind of in one area.
We're all up by the one fountain.
Yeah, so they all kind of got around there. Meanwhile, us, the Baltimore brewers, are kind of down the line because we don't live in the area. We don't know. So
I think Attaboy chooses that area purely because it's just the closest to their spot, so that it's easier for them to carry stuff.
Yeah, yeah. So, but no, I think that'll be great for. I think it's great for breweries because if there's a brewery that's really popular and you're kind of a smaller startup brewery and people are there to see this other one, they'll kind of they'll see that there's other stuff in that area, and then it could make help people kind of decide, hey, well, if I go to Guinness, then I can also hit Heavy Seas, and I can also hit some of these other West Side.
And I also think
breweries.
doing it that way eliminates, because I'm sure they did the randomized locations because there was a perceived some spots are better than others type of thing. But if you do it based purely just on regionally, there aren't any bad spots.
No.
Because
no
matter what, you're going to have some large draw brewery that has the notoriety to bring someone to that regional area that everyone else is going to benefit from it too by...
Yeah, I guess we'll see how it works. So this will be the first attempt at the Baltimore Craft Beer
That's the first time I heard it. I love that idea. That's pretty cool. Wish I could go. So, actually, I don't think I have any more questions now. I think we covered everything I wanted to. Do you have anything planned out through December safe to talk about?
December, no.
So how often do you do can releases?
So we're trying about once every 2 months. So we are. I actually need to kind of figure out when our next canning run is going to be, and then figure out the brew schedule for it. But we'll probably be releasing something. Let's see. Probably end of November, sometime around then in November, early December, we'll have our next can release, and we'll do, possibly another octopus themed beer, or maybe not. I don't know.
I really do love that story.
So, so we'll see. But yeah, it should be I would say beginning of December or late November.
Oh, actually, I did want the names of the other, Abel and Miss Baker.
Okay, Abel and Miss Baker. So this, the Hefeweizen, because I use Galaxy hops in, I have to make it space related. So Abel and Miss Baker were the first two monkeys to be shot into space and return alive.
Okay, so they do have at least a good story.
And then the 41-year lapse. So that's our American Pale Ale. That is it was the first commercial beer brewed in Brewers Hill in 41 years since the National Brewing Company.
Oh, that's cool.
And Gunther and Company, or Gunther, not Gunther Company, that's the restaurant. Gunther Brewing Company closed, and so they both shut down in 1978, and so it was kind of a historical nod to that brewing community.
Oh, that's right, because you have the tagline, bringing brewing back to Brewers Hill, or
bringing beer back to Brewers Hill. So Brewers Hill is the neighborhood that we're in, and it's called that because it's a hill, and there were 2 breweries on top of it.
Okay.
And so if you're coming into Baltimore from 95, you'll see a big neon winking Mr. Bo on top of Natty Bo Tower. But they haven't obviously brewed beer there since they shut down in '78.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're the first commercial brewery to brew in Brewers Hill since then. So that's 41-year lapse is the name of our.
Cool.
That was our first beer that we brewed.
Right, so you haven't been open that long yet, but have you received any particularly funny bad reviews that you would consider actually good? Because I love bad reviews.
Well, no. I mean, it's funny because we sort of deep dive when we get a bad review. We're like, let's. It's mostly on Yelp, so we'll.
Although people on Yelp put some effort into.
Oh, they do, because have you ever tried to post a review on Yelp?
No.
It constantly prompts you to add more.
Oh, well, that makes sense then.
I have never done it, but I've gone through it, and like, what would it take to put a review on Yelp? And it's constantly prompting.
Did you hate this too?
No, yeah, right. No, it's like we find that 45% of the people post a review this long. Do another 2 sentences to blah blah blah, and
so you're shamed for putting in a short.
So we'll
what,
find.
Are you too stupid to add more words to this?
We'll read like the bad Yelp reviews, and then we'll be like, okay, when were these people here? And we'll look at the date, and it's like, oh, this person also left a bad review at the same time, and then we'll like stalk them on like.
You're such an engineer.
We'll stalk them on Untappd and kind of find out where. Here's their username on Untappd. Oh, they didn't like anything, So it's. I mean, it's creepy, but I haven't. That was kind of when we were first opening. So now I'm just like, I don't care. Right? I'm beyond that. Right? I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do, and if they don't like it, they don't have to come back. So
were you able to glean anything from that though? Because it's not like you actually put in a lot of effort to.
Well, it's mostly my wife. She gets. I guess she's got time on her hands, but no. I mean, we found out that it was this couple that came together, and they apparently give everyone bad reviews because we looked at their other Yelp reviews, and then we looked at all the beers on the Untappd that they like, and they're they don't like any beers on Untappd except for there was like some really weird like Radlers and things like that they really love, and it was like, why?
Why are they
right? So I don't know. It kind of validates us more that I think, but
they must be really fun people to hang around with.
I bet.
Let me tell you about all the things I hate.
Right? I would welcome them to come back to the brewery and try some of our newer offerings. Maybe they would like them more.
You should make a Radler and name it after them.
I refuse. I won't make a Radler. I won't do it. I will do it. I'm sure someday if enough, I'll probably make a hard seltzer someday if enough people want it. Yeah. Right.
It didn't take you long to turn around.
No, I hate Radlers and fruit juice beer concoctions. Although we do beer mosas at the brewery with.
I mean, that's basically a Radler.
Yeah, I know. So I don't know what I'm complaining about, right?
What non-Mobtown Maryland beer are you enjoying at this moment?
Right now, I have the Monument City Brewers exclusive #1.
Is that good? I didn't make it out there to try it.
It's great.
I mean, I just assumed it was going to be great.
It's delicious. They're really, these guys they've been, well, first of all, shouts out to Monument City because they have been super awesome just in helping us along the way, helping us get involved in, local events, and kind of always looking, hey, have you guys reached out to Mobtown? And they're 8 blocks away from us. So
yeah, that was actually where I was headed when I drove past.
So and they and then just when we first got the things that people don't think about when you open a brewery, what am I going to do with my spent grain?
Yeah.
So our first 2 months we had no idea what to do with spent grain, and so Ken and Matt were like, well, just, load it into cans and you can come dump it into our trailer, because they obviously produce a lot more of it than us.
Yeah.
So they have a farmer that comes in, takes it twice a week, and so they helped us kind of get through that until we found a farmer to take ours. So
That's awesome.
yeah, they've been great.
Yeah, I know Ken the best out of all of them, and he's such a great guy.
They're all of them. They're all really great people. So
Well, that was a good answer because that's a beer I had wanted but didn't make it out then. I assume now at this point it's gone.
it's still available. I bought it.
Is it?
Literally last
Cool.
week. I got 4 packs of it last weekend. So
I need to go out there.
get to
then, 'cause,
Baltimore and you can come visit us.
That's a good idea. I'll just have to take a day off or make it a work
There you
trip.
go.
It'll be a work trip.
Right. Expense it.
So this is far enough away that I can still talk about it in the future. This will come out on December 7th. This is a whiskey I made with McClintock Distilling, who's right along Carroll Creek near where the festival is. It is a hop-infused single malt whiskey named No Cover Charge, and it'll be available December 7th at their anniversary party.
It smells amazing.
So thank you for coming out.
Thank you.
This is really fun, interesting. My favorite story now has been told.
Sweet. Beat that, everyone. Challenge.
Thank you, everyone, for watching and listening. Cheers.
Cheers.
Uncapped is brought to you with support from McClintock Distilling, Maryland's first and only organic certified distillery. They are well known for their award-winning gin and are rapidly growing a name for themselves for their Matchstick Bourbon and Bootjack Rye Whiskey that have both won double gold at international spirits competitions. You can visit them in historic downtown Frederick along Carroll Creek for tours and tastings. Go to McClintockdistilling.com for more information.